Hello and welcome to an episode of the Manufacturing Leaders podcast with me, Mark Bracknell, Managing Director of Theo James Recruitment. On today's episode, we have Jon Connolly, the Service Manager of Alco. Jon is an inspirational young manager who communicated his journey so incredibly well. We talk about the age-old question of should you stay in the business and progress versus perhaps job hop, move around and look for competition to develop your own career. And he gave a compelling argument why businesses should look close to their home instead of always looking to take on from their competition. And in a situation we're in now with recruitment and retention being quite difficult, I completely agree with him. So you're going to learn a lot from that conversation. We also talk about management styles. It's a great piece of advice for perhaps younger managers looking to manage people older than them. We talk about training, we talk about looking at psychometric testing to help recruit but also manage people in the business, and so much more. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was fantastic to speak to such a young, inspirational manager that you're going to learn a lot from. So please sit back and listen, enjoy the episode. Please just click that button and subscribe or follow us the show. It means the world to me. It means we can keep growing the channel. So thank you so much for that. Hope you enjoy the episode. Fantastic. So a massive warm welcome today to Jon Connolly, the Service Manager at Alco. How are you, Jon? All right?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Cheers for having me.
A pleasure to have you on. You were actually a referral from one of my clients and podcastees, Phil Atkinson of BTS. So you got Phil to thank for being on there today, but I know we've had a good chat. I'm looking forward to it. So first question, same question I ask everyone. What does it mean to you to be a leader?
Yeah, I think everyone will say it's a privilege. You've got a massive impact on the livelihoods of your employees and their families. But for me, the job in a nutshell is to bring out the best in people. And yeah, if you can help your staff fulfill their potential, they're going to do a brilliant job with your customers. And ultimately, it's a results-based business, and the results what you want, but it's all getting that through supporting, developing, demanding from your people. So yeah, I love it. I think it's a great privilege. Love what I do. There's a ton of freedom, and yeah, I'm really lucky. I've only been at the Newcastle Service Centre for 6 months, but been at the company a longer period. But there's some fantastic people here, and yeah, seeing already in a short space of time how they've came on, absorbed, bought into my different ideas or ways of doing things. It's been really refreshing.
Yeah, nice. And I think it'd be refreshing for people listening, for someone like you who's, built the way up in the industry, in the business at quite a young age, which is great to see. How are you finding the Northeast? Enjoying it?
Yeah, I love it. I'm back where I belong. The air's fresher, the weather's worse, but we love it, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah. So welcome back, mate. So no, great stuff. But no, I mean, I think that privilege is an interesting piece because I agree. But I think well, I'll ask the question before I sort of lead you into this. Did you think it was the privilege piece something you were driven by, or was that something you just found and now it is a part of the job? Or did you want to be a manager because you wanted to be in a place of privilege to help people? What drove you to that?
I underestimated the privilege side of things. I think when I was younger, I wanted responsibility. I wanted accountability. I wanted to feel I was part of something significant, and that sort of drove me to want to progress. Also, when I joined the company, this was like 10 years ago, and I had the mentality that the only way to grow your salary was also to step into leadership. So I was pretty naive in terms of the responsibility. And again, you're on health and safety courses and you realize what you've signed up to logistically, and there's a great responsibility that comes with it all. I think for me as well, I probably underestimated how self-demanding it is to be a leader, because you've got to expect the absolute most of yourself to hold any form of standards or expectations of anyone else. I think that was a big learning for me. I remember really early on in my career, I had a visitor in the company come and help train me on some logistics side of the business. I was walking through the warehouse with him, and he said to me, anything you walk past, you've just said is acceptable. And that really hit home, not just for the warehouse side, but then going into the sales office. It's as a leader, if you walk past anything, you've just said it's acceptable. So it was that I was always conscious of what I said and what I did. I maybe wasn't conscious of what I didn't say, and maybe what I observed and maybe didn't challenge at times. So yeah, there's been some tough lessons in that side as well of, yeah, it's being hyper aware and you're always having clear standards in your head.
Yeah, I love that concept because you're right. You are setting the standards for everyone in your team and everyone else. But did you how hard do you find that sometimes? Because you'll set your own standards, and often those standards are different to other people's, probably potentially in your team or not. How difficult have you found that as a manager, trying to get people to that level, and some people just can't get there?
Yeah, it's a tough one. And I think I've made a ton of mistakes. What I did find worked for me was when you get the right team around you. Ultimately, you're only as strong as your people, and that starts with your leadership team. So if you've got a team of 3 or 4 leaders, you all have similar values, ethics, and standards, and you're talking about it regularly, that really helps because everyone sort of knows and you become soundboards for each other. Sorry if the lawnmower guy's a bit loud.
That's all right.
So yeah, I think that was the key thing for me is it starts at the top, setting the standards clear at the top, and then that transcended through the business.
A lot of people influence, well, I think most of us are influenced by managers we've had, whether that be great managers or bad managers. I think everyone can be an influence. Do you feel like you've had some influential managers over your career? What do you say?
Yeah, I've genuinely been so lucky to have the best of the best at this company. Yeah, I've always had inspiring leaders. I've always had leaders who've taken a lot of time for me, even when it's been staying back after 5 to like ask questions, putting me on courses way before I was ready, letting me make mistakes. And again, another big lesson for me is as a leader, how you react to problems or errors, mistakes. I think that defines you massively because you're always influencing. And if someone makes an error and you absolutely go to town on them, they'll never forget that. But also the rest of the team and the business will always remember, and they'll speak about, I remember when Jon reacted like this to that scenario. I've made some stinkers in my career, and I've always been refreshed at how it was reacted to, and always treated as a learning opportunity of, look, what have you learned from that? What are you now going to put in place? What are you going to do differently to make sure that that doesn't happen again, or that you have a more effective outcome? So yeah, I've been really lucky.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think if you an environment where it's okay to make mistakes as long as you don't keep making them is a completely different environment where you're disciplined if you make mistakes, because then you're scared to sometimes try different things and push yourself. So it sounds like they've created that environment, which is.
I think you bang on. It's that not making the same mistake over and over, because yeah, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
And I'd expect myself to have been challenged differently if it was the same mistake. But certainly
It could be a training issue that often those things are training issues, particularly in an environment like you work in. Like a logistics piece, like you say, health and safety standards, that is imperative because those mistakes can be extremely costly versus, both cash but also health and safety perspective as well, which is mega, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, I think in terms of, I started on the sales desk, and God, everyone's ordered the wrong material at one point, wrong size, wrong grade, and again, that's got a knock-on effect to the customer. And yeah, the learning is in how, firstly, you communicate to the customer immediately, take ownership, tell them what the solution is going to be and by when. Secondly, what you're going to do with the wrong material you've ordered and how you're going to try and fix that. And I think I had great leaders that always supported me, but held me massively accountable to owning it. And yeah, accountability is something that's drummed into you early on, or certainly has been to me at this company. And I've benefited from that massively. Is you're never looking to blame anyone else, always looking at what can I control, what can I do to solve this.
Yeah, and that's it. That blame word is massive, isn't it? Because you do get companies where people just pass the buck and never take responsibility. But I think if you take responsibility for your own mistakes, then ultimately that's the best way to learn. I'm really interested in your career because I guess And it's funny actually. I've read a LinkedIn post there where someone was saying the best way to progress is the job hop. And I think they were getting the point in terms of you should try different things to realize what you're good at and what you enjoy doing. But also, I've heard there's that classic debate of a job for life versus someone who has gone 2 years, 5 years, and tried different things. And there's obviously pros and cons. But it's very rare now you see people who are at companies more than 5 years. Actually, it is quite rare. You've obviously been at your current player since you started, and it's a lovely in terms of when you start, when you are now, it looks like you've had a classic progression. Was that route documented, planned, or the way it happened?
Yeah, it's certainly never planned. There's never any guarantees, and you've always got to produce the results, interview. And I've certainly had a number of internal vacancies that I applied for, I've been rejected on. But again, getting that feedback, really sitting down and trying to understand, right, so what is it I need to go away and do? And you're working hard with that side of things. I think for me, I always joined with the mentality of joining for a career and not a job. So whenever I recruit people, I make that clear is, look, if you want to potentially get rich quick, this may not be the right company for you. But if you're looking for a career and long-term financial rewards, I can absolutely guarantee that this will be the right place. And managing people's expectations early on, I try and take ownership on the recruitment side to make sure that you're trying to prevent the job hoppers. Because for me, I always see great value in staying at a company a long time. I think that the best paid people in the company tend to have been there the longest. And certainly when you're part of a successful business and you see people who've been there a long time and you hear about what their lifestyle's like and how they've done it, and you sort of see the results that back that up. For me, that was always inspiring to follow. A number of my mates have jumped around different jobs, and I just find it mental like that. That isn't something that I could picture myself doing.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's how people view work. Is it a career or is it a job? And if it's a job, then there's less tie to something emotionally and long term. But yeah, if someone joins a career and you're really sitting down and having appraisals and working out pathways to where do you want to be, what do you think you need to do to get there, and coming up with plans together, you can't always promise them that they'll reach where they wish to, because everyone will say they want to be a regional director of the company and there's not enough positions for everyone. But again, if you align it towards what's it going to take from them to get there, and coming up with plans towards the progression, they might end up somewhere where they didn't expect, that actually suits them far better than they initially envisioned.
Yeah. How hard is that for a company? Because I completely agree with you. I think particularly now, the new generation coming through, they want to know what they need to do to progress, how they can progress, how much money they'll earn, and it's much more, it needs to be much more structured, I think, than it used to be for a lot of people. How hard is that for a business? Because, like I say, if you've got a team of people and they all want this progression, and you're the manager, how do you sort of manage that process?
Yeah, I think I always try and bring it back to the simple side of, look, nail the job you're in and spend a lot of time talking about what that looks like, and really paint a picture of, if you were nailing X, Y, Z, then that's when we start talking about the next steps, and make sure that that's demanding but achievable. And naturally, your best people will get there, and they'll be hammering down your door and saying, like, I've done it. What about the interview now? And that's what you want in a perfect world. I think the service centre I started in, one of the regional directors is now running that business. And there's loads of leaders that have came through that one service centre. And I think that is one of the biggest achievements a leader can have, is developing others, because great leaders create more leaders. So I think in our company, where we only internally promote, and there's a vast number of service centres, there's a big benefit there in saying, look, if you're mobile and you're willing to relocate, you can absolutely progress within this company. I think it's more challenging when it's a smaller, tighter business and there's maybe not as much flexibility to move. But again, that was one of the reasons I joined Alco, was because I knew that there was progression paths, but I also knew it was going to take a lot of sacrifice in moving around the country. And yeah, I've worked for 5 different service centres to be sat where I am. So it wasn't all given. Yeah. It's had to be worked hard for.
Yeah, I bet. Do you think sometimes people can be promoted too early in a business when they're not ready?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting one because I'd say I was promoted too early. Um, and yeah, made a ton of mistakes, but the best learning's done in the role. So as long as you're promoting the right people who've got determination, grit, willingness to learn, they're going to self-reflect, they're going to get support and ask questions. I'd more flip it the other way and say, what's the danger of leaving it too long? And no one's ever ready. And God, if people waited till I was ready, I'd maybe just been appointed team leader now. It's I think I've benefited massively from having leaders back me. And I look back at points in my career and think, God, they could have took the best from any of our competitors and thrown money to attract them, but they didn't. They were willing to back a young grad who was clumsy as hell and made a load of mistakes. But yeah, now it's that tip of the iceberg thing where now it looks like the right decision, but way back when, I'm sure there was a lot of questions being asked of whether you were good enough, whether you were ready. I think ultimately the one big bit of learning for me is it fully back someone. Yeah, if you're going to put them in that position, give them all the support. And I've really benefited from that side.
Yeah, I think you raised such a valid point, John, because if you look at the sector now, everyone's biggest problem is retention and recruitment, and recruitment it's probably never been tougher, I think, to find good talent. So I completely agree to invest internally in the team and give them opportunities, because ultimately, if they brought someone in from a competitor and paid X amount versus promoting someone like you, who's going to be more loyal? It's going to be you every time.
But I just think as well, look, I've never worked for the company and seen someone taken from a competitor, but I've always had this mentality of that would be the biggest compliment to our competition you could give them. And it'd be the biggest insult to all of the team. And none of you are good enough, so we're going to need to go elsewhere. Yes. So I think as much as sometimes the shorter term win is taking someone on who does have the experience and has had a longer maybe tooth in the game, the longer term view of developing from within and backing your own people, it just the culture then evolves towards it becoming an expectation that look, future roles are going to be filled by one of us, and then everyone's challenging each other to be at the best. Yeah, and they're not sat back waiting for someone externally to come in and tell them what to do.
Yeah, I completely agree. 90% of my staff are non-recruit and not from recruitment. We train them up because I everything you just said I completely agree with, because I don't really like the recruitment industry, so I want I didn't want to bring people in from competition. I didn't necessarily back, but exactly what you said there. If you've been there 2-3 years and you're waiting for your opportunity, which you deserve, and then they bring someone else in from a competitor, then where's your ambition going to go, and where's your look to the business? So I couldn't agree more. It's a massive point of it. I think it's absolutely huge. It links quite nicely with employee value proposition, that piece, in terms of what else can businesses do to really keep their staff and attract staff. I think what you're talking about there is massive. Is there anything else you think as a business they've done to keep you where you are? Because I imagine you'll have messages in mails and all sorts, and there's always opportunities out there, to earn more money and this and that. What's kept you there?
I think it's the things outside of salary that have always appealed to me. So the training that's went on. Ultimately, for me, it's I want to be developed. I want to push myself to be the best I can be. So having worked with people who understand that, and they've always ensured I'm on training courses. I'm now running training courses, and just I think the big message is speaking to your team and understanding what is it they want, what do they want to achieve. Some days outside of work, whether it's being golf, track days, or days at the races, little things like that go a long way. They have them for myself, but I ensure that we do it for our team as well. If we've had a great first half of the year, yeah, let's take the team out to the races, let's celebrate. And yeah, people want to feel they're part of something special. So yeah, the onus is on the leader to create that environment. And yeah, that's not just in work, that's sometimes outside of work, and you're getting the team together. What's always interesting is how people change outside of the working environment as well, where someone's really serious because they're compliant and they care so much about the detail and getting things right, then taking them out of that environment and people getting to know who they really are. Yeah, the other thing that's always been done well by leaders I've worked for is taking that personal interest. I think some managers see it as there's this barrier of outside of work's you, and not taking that personal interest. I've always worked for leaders who've really took time to understand me, understand what I'm about, my partner, my ambitions, where I've wanted to move. I always made it clear that at some point I want to relocate up north. And when I had a daughter, it was probably made even more clear by me that this is important to me. And I was lucky enough that was able to be facilitated. But that always taught me is, God, I've got to put that same time into all of my staff to really understand. People will always give you signals if they're going to leave. And I've lost some good people in the past, and I've thought back of, God, that was them trying to tell me if I didn't change this or I didn't adapt that, they were going to go. So that's regular contact.
Yeah, it is. It's that feedback, isn't it? Because exactly that. You know, it's a gut feeling, but obviously you can't rewind the clock and get them in a room and say, how are things, what can I improve on? But is that something you work on in terms of that side, in terms of getting that feedback from them, would you say, to make sure?
Yeah, and I make sure I don't put it all on myself, because then it can become a bit of a box tick to go through everyone. What I try and do is quarterly appraisals with all staff. I'll probably sit in every other one, at least every other one. And then, empower the department managers to be speaking to the team. And sometimes you get some great ideas from those conversations. Sometimes it's like little tiny tweaks in the business. We had one of the drivers complaining about the hose to clean down the vehicles, saying how short it is. And God, if we had a longer hose, life would be so much easier. And obviously it's a tiny investment, but that was really important to them. That was because basically if a certain vehicle was parked getting loaded, they then couldn't clean the vehicles. And it's the little tiny things. I always think if you can't get them right, how are you going to get the big things right?
Yeah, no, so 100%. It's a valid point. But some of those people just will moan to the colleagues and not dare speak to the manager unless they get the opportunity.
That's such a big topic. I mean, we promoted one of the warehouse ops to a supervisor recently, and we were saying, you're the voice of the warehouse. We know you're a big part of the team. Yeah. We need to hear what the guys are saying, and we try and do these appraisals to get a feel of, or a flavour of what's going on. But we need to know what's being said and what we can do to make this the best environment to work in.
Yeah. Apologies for interrupting this podcast for a very quick 30-second pitch of my business. Theo James are a specialist manufacturing and engineering recruitment search firm based in Seaham in the Northeast. If you're looking for any staff or a new opportunity yourself, from a semi-skilled level right the way up to C-suite executive, then please get in touch. We have a specialist consultant in each discipline ready to help. I'm extremely proud of what we've built over the years, and I'd love to extend that service out to you. Thank you. Enjoy the podcast. Yeah, I understand. You're obviously a young manager, and I imagine you've had team members who have perhaps been older than you, which I guess is a challenge sometimes. How have you found that process?
I remember when I first became sales manager, I was 23, and the full team of 12 people, they were all older than me.
Yeah.
And I never, the age thing never bothered me, because I always saw it as, I once went on a training course. It was a trainer called Des Reddy, and he spoke about how experienced everyone was in the room and got them to say how long they'd been at the business. And then he made a really strong point about how many of you have done the same year 9 years over, because then you're not experienced. Mm-hmm. You're only experienced if you've went and put yourself outside your comfort zone, tried learned new things, applied them. And that always gave me confidence that I've made a career of trying to put myself outside my comfort zone and learn, expose myself. And I think, yeah, I always tried to work with staff who were more experienced to me. There was never an ego. It was always understanding, look, here's what you're great at. Where do you need support? Where can I help you improve more? And it might not be through myself. It might be using other people that are central support or from other service centres, but just trying to help facilitate that support, remove red tape for them. Sometimes it's that mentality side. That was always what I backed myself on was, no matter how experienced someone was, I could always help them with mentality and being positive, growth minded. That self-development I always did early on. I always wanted to share that with all my team. And again, you're making it fun. Someone could be dead experienced, could have worked the business 20 years, but they might never have had incentives or potential pay scales put in front of them or the team incentives that were put in place just to make it a more enjoyable working place. So it was never for me about who knew the most about metal. It was about, how can I get the best out of you? How can I help you reach your potential?
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's great. And actually, the word you said there was ego, because you haven't, if you lead with ego, then it ain't going to work. And I think a lot of,
I couldn't. These guys had done better sales figures than I'd ever achieved. They'd been in the game longer. There wasn't ever an option to. And I think because I learned that so early on, and I obviously saw good results from never leading that way, I'm fortunate enough to never have had to even try lead an ego way, which is a really good thing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the benefits to someone like yourself as well, because let's look at engineering manufacturing as an example. You do tend to find people who have worked, let's say, as an engineer for 20 years, and then they are promoted to a manager because they have 20 years experience as an engineer, no experience as a manager, and not necessarily taught the ways to manage people in terms of techniques wise.
Yeah.
Someone like yourself is obviously, you've worked on you, and you've worked on like growth mindset and that piece for a long time. So exactly that, the experience you have is perfect for management. So I think that's the advantage for perhaps the younger generation, in terms of that management is an art and it's a job, and that's obviously something you've worked at since you started it.
Yeah, and it's so interesting you say that, because some of the customers I've built really good relationships with, again, they've started like a signage company on the shop floor and like had all the promotions all the way up to then be the MD.
Mm-hmm.
They understand all the product, they understand every aspect of the business. But again, that being a leader and having sort of studied leadership and management, that gaps then really later on in the career. So my advice would always be, if you aspire to be a manager and a leader, don't wait till you've got the badge to start learning and practicing it as early on as you can. If we've got a great salesperson saying they want to be a team leader, I'm like, show me. Don't wait till you've got the title to be acting like it. So run meetings and you get exposure to being a leader. I always try and give as much freedom to expose yourself, because then in essence, when the interview comes, you're just talking about, well, what have you done over the past 3 months? And then if they can give you all the examples, hey, job's yours. But if they're in the interview saying about what they would do or what they might do, it's like, well, sorry, but go show me.
Yeah. And you said yourself, when you were starting to be a leader, you had training courses and then you were delivering training. And I think the best way to gain experience or gain knowledge of something is to train someone else, because you've got to make sure you've got your own ducks in a row, haven't you? Big part of it.
Yeah. We actually, new starters, so say someone's been here 6 months, they'll be the one who then trains the next new starter on the system, on the products, because they'll tend to explain it best as well, because they won't use the sort of lingo or jargon words that someone more experienced might be prone to.
Yeah.
It's always that, ensuring people are training to cement their understanding even further.
Love that. How have you had to adapt your management style, in terms of to manage different people and different personalities? How difficult is that? Have you had to really sort of hone in on different styles to get the best out of people?
Yeah, so look, it's never easy, and I'm certainly not
Yeah.
perfect at it. We've got some tools we use. So there's a company called Thomas International,
Yeah.
and they have behavioral assessments, which I know can be sort of putting people in a box. But in terms of just helping you prepare how to get the best conversation or outcome with someone, they've been really effective. So I remember when I joined the business, I did a personality profile assessment. And it sort of measures 4 factors. So dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. And it'll just help your line manager understand how you want to be communicated to. For example, if someone's massively high in compliance, you need to make sure you've prepared all the facts and figures to talk to them really factually. Yeah, I'm not necessarily that person. So yeah, I'm more the dominant side, which is your results focus. I'm influenced because I'm all through people. So facts and figures are important to me. And yeah, I'd studied accounting and finance at university, so I do like the numbers side. But what appeals to me more is yeah, people and results and talking about that aspect. Yeah, the steadiness side will also measure like the pace of work people like to work at. So some car crashes I've had is when someone's really high in steadiness, and I've spoke about some changes I'm wanting to make today without pre-warning them and getting their ideas and buy-in. And yeah, so the personality profile assessment's been really useful to sort of judging what hat you want to wear and how to best prepare for individual meetings. The other one was a general intelligence assessment. So it doesn't measure how thick or smart you are at all. It measures fluid intelligence, so how quickly you can pick things up. So, for example, if we both went to university together, Mark, we did the exact same degree, and I studied night and day, worked my backside off, and you did the bare minimum, but we both achieved the same first class honours. That doesn't mean we're the same level of intelligence. Your fluid intelligence would be far, far higher, but I'd obviously worked really hard to form crystallized intelligence. So yeah, I'd done a lot of studying, revising, and that's really handy to know, especially when you're about to put someone in a new role, because yeah, someone who's got high fluid intelligence will pick things up quickly. I think when you were talking about promoting people too soon, if someone was really low in the GIA, this doesn't mean that they couldn't be massively successful. It's just going to mean they might need more time. So I maybe wouldn't rush someone through promotions who had a low GIA, because I'd want to help them master each step, because I know that'd be important to their learning development. Whereas if someone's high GIA, you probably can push them in the deep end a bit more, because they're going to pick things up really quickly. And yeah, I guess the risk is, and yeah, something that caught me out is, if you are quite quick at picking things up, it can lead to a tendency for arrogance.
Yeah.
And this is where you'll see people sort of put in minimal preparation because they think they can get away with it, or in the past they've blagged things. And yeah, that's the challenge, is managing the people with the high GIAs to how can you still put in that maximum prep and efforts, and yeah, then what could you achieve?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating because there's this massive debate around psychometric testing in terms of, is it a barrier? Can you put people in boxes? But I agree with everything you said there, because so we use them probably not as consistently as we should do, but we use them more often than not. And I think it's not a pass or fail, like you said there. It means that we can understand potentially what sort of learner they are, what makes them tick, what challenges they might have, and how we can best manage them. I think we do use it as in the recruitment process, because ultimately some of those red flags are things we can then discuss in interview.
Yeah,
But actually, case in point, one of our last hires, he scored so highly on like confidence and everything we look for in terms of more the sales related, the consultation piece, intelligence piece, that fluid intelligence piece, which I think is massive. But it basically came across that he didn't like to be told what to do, and he always felt he knew best. And it was like a red flag, bing, bing, bing. But it wasn't you're not going to work for us. We brought this up in an interview. We said, look, this is what the results have shown, and can you show some examples? And to be fair to him, he was like, look, I can understand why that would be the case. These are the examples, and that is an area that I wouldn't say it's a weakness, but that's something that I need to work on. And actually, we understand him so much more and what makes him tick, and we manage him in probably a slightly different way than we do with someone else, and he's doing really well. So I think it's fascinating if you know what someone's potentially going to be like going in versus just it going in blind management wise. I don't think you'll get the best out of them and they might make the best out of you. So I agree. Do you use it to hire as well, or is it actually when they started?
No, because like you said, it's not a pass or fail. But
Yeah.
I think the example you used there is brilliant of finding a potential red flag on the assessment, but then talking to them about it, and more importantly, seeing how they react.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was probably what secured him the job, was that positive reaction of, look, I am willing to learn. That's something for me to work on.
Yeah.
If he'd been really close-minded to that, like, that's who I am and that's how it's going to be, I don't think he'd maybe be sat there today. So, I think the other thing is how it comes across from the employee's perspective. I know personally the way it was always framed to me was positive. So it was always seen as how seriously they're taking you, that they're willing to put this investment into you checking your profile and checking your intelligence assessment to show how serious this commitment is, and that we don't just take on anyone. We want the best people, and we want to talk to you about your profile and what we think's really good and the potential areas that are flagging as concerns on it. Let's talk and understand what's your level of self-awareness.
Yeah, because I think what you're talking about there is just you're creating the right environment for them, or actually you're understanding if the environment they're going to go into is going to make them flourish or isn't, which is important, because there's no point in taking someone from a job or from straight from university in your respect if they're not going to be right for the business and vice versa. It's huge.
Yeah, because again, the cost of churning through people and having to replace it, you can't measure it, because the time side of the training, the time of waiting to find another employee, and what the cost is of had that employee worked out in the first place, how much further along they'd be.
Yeah.
For me, we want to nail our recruiting, our onboarding, and you make sure that you're continually investing in your team to get that retention. The other thing that is a style of management I've taken on through training is, as a coach, whether you're being directive or non-directive, I always found, well, this was probably easier for me because I didn't know enough. But I've seen some experienced leaders get promoted, and because they've mastered sales, they've been in the game a long time, someone will come to them for advice, and the natural tendency is to tell people what to do. So to be directive, you pretty much push them in the direction and off they go. That doesn't develop your people. So I was always lucky that I didn't necessarily know as much as everyone else. So I got good at being non-directive and pulling info out of people. So you're bringing me a problem, Mark, and I'm saying, look, you're good at this. What do you think you should do? And sometimes people more coming to you as a soundboard, but every time they're bringing you a problem, you're getting their thoughts on, well, what are our options? What's best case scenario? What's worst case scenario? What do we think is a fair outcome for both parties? And you'd really draw an info out of people to actually check their understanding. But also, I've always found there's nothing more empowering than someone bringing you a problem, their idea, and you giving them the sort of nod. Yeah, you're perfect. That's better than I could have thought of. Off you go. And then the aftermath of how's that worked out. And if it hasn't went well, again, like I said earlier, it's what's the learning. But if it has gone well, why do you think that works so effectively? And really getting into them thinking consciously about decisions and not just making emotional reactions off the cuff.
Yeah, honestly, you're so right. It is so difficult, that skill. I've had a bit of management training because it's something that I really struggle with, actually. And I think you get two different reasons why people just give the answers. Well, a few different reasons. One's because people just like to it's the quick and easy way. It's a quick and easy way. I've got time. Here's the answer. I think from my point of view, I got a real buzz off helping. I really like feeling like I've helped someone, but
Yeah,
actually it's still the outcome is wrong because they get used to just coming to you and given the answers. So I completely agree. Making that flip to go, what do you think you do? And then just get the solutions. They then come to you with problems, but the difference is, here's a problem. This is what I think I should do. Do you know what I mean? So there's even that level of thought about it. And often, yeah, that's right. Go for it. Do you know what I mean?
it is. You're right. It's so much slower, but
Yeah.
in the long run, it
Yeah.
actually saves you so much more time, and you develop the right people. And then, yeah, some of the most rewarding thing is when you see the team doing it to each other. So then it doesn't end up even getting brought to you. They're like, "Oh, this has happened. I'm thinking of doing this," and you're listening to them debating a decision, and I'm just sat back quietly, like,
Yeah.
That's when I know I'm getting my culture where I want it to be. Is, yeah, they're all challenging each other and, yeah, feeling safe enough to knock ideas around.
Yeah, I think for me it was maybe even an ego thing, if I'm going to be honest and really sort of reflect, because I was in a position where there was questions, and I was finding the answers, and I was thinking, this is great. I'm the fixer. This is my role in the business. This is great. I'm the person people come to and I fix problems. But actually, I wasn't fixing it. It was so short term, like you say, and suddenly you've got all these staff and you just get five questions left, right, and center, and you're not getting any work done, but you're not creating an environment of people where people are going to learn and develop. So I come
Yeah,
here, making that flip is massive.
it's really interesting because I can see your side. Is it always positive to help your team? I remember once I had a warehouse manager, and it was almost like the mentality was to be the man who had all the answers,
Uh-huh.
but it was more out of an insecurity side of things, of
Yeah.
wanting to make sure that his job was secure.
Mhm.
And he went on holiday for 2 weeks and things fell to pieces.
Mhm.
And I remember him coming back like, look, I'll save the day, I'll fix it all. And I remember sitting down and painting it really clearly of, look, my measure of how good you are as a leader is when you're not there. So you measure me on when I'm not in the business, what's the culture like? What's the results like? How are people speaking about the company? How are they communicating with each other? That's the measure I want to be measured on. And I remember holding up the mirror to him and saying, when you're not in the business, this is what's happened. And this is the level of sort of incompetence because of a lack of development. So what are you going to do to fix it? And it was like he'd never heard anything like it before. But for me, I want everyone trained on everything. I hate this idea of being dependent on one individual because you can't control things. And I've had, we spoke about retention. Sometimes it can't be helped. I've had one of my best employees hand in the notice because it was to look after the parents full time because they were ill. And it was like in life, family's priority. And I could never have expected it, but it absolutely destroyed me because others weren't trained up in his niche.
Yeah.
So yeah, that always taught me, God, yeah, oh, if we can always adopt this technique of drawing ideas from others and talk, and if you do give them the answers, talk to them about why, get them to understand this is the way I'd advise, here's why, but go test it out, go see what you think and report back. I think, yeah, I was scolded early on, and that hopefully has, yeah, really helped me in trying to get it right now.
Yeah, love that, mate. That's fantastic. Just to finish off, finally, it's been great. I always like to ask advice in terms of your thoughts on the industry. Obviously, you will have eyes on the industry in terms of what Alco do and how are you finding things and what challenges would you say the industry's got now and any advice on how as an industry we start to sort of fix them, because we're in interesting times right now.
Yeah, I think obviously I'm from a supply chain point of view. You know, the businesses that we see the greatest success with in terms of their results, and obviously the companies that continue to spend more metal with us is the ones that really invest in partnerships. Yeah, I know their directors. There's multiple, like I was saying earlier, you're not reliant on one person. So there's layers of contacts with the customer and the supplier. We're talking through the challenges they face in their supply and how we can help them. Yeah, we talk as well about not being a transactional supplier to our customers. We want to be consultative. We want to get into the headaches, the pains, and I think, yeah, the more open-minded a manufacturing business can be to testing the suppliers and talking through more of the aches and pains, the more benefit there can be. I'd hope gone are the days where it's just who's the cheapest and batting everyone round on price, because yes, service is imperative, reliability, trust, and the companies that work really closely with us, we're tracking their usages better than they ever could. Like, our systems are set up perfectly to look at even how much we've quoted of items that haven't converted, and talking to the customers about, look, we keep quoting these items, we've recognized that they're not coming to fruition. Why is that? What can we do to help that side of things? So I think for me, it's, if I can influence anything, it's get close to your suppliers, try and understand what more they can do to benefit your business. Because we've learned this as well. As a stockholder, we're leaning on mills all across the world. We do our utmost to treat our suppliers as customers, because without them, we've got nothing. And I could have the best team in the world, but if I can't give them the product to sell, they're not doing much for me. Vice versa to the manufacturing side, is we see ourselves as playing a pivotal role in supporting their businesses to achieve their goals. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, love that, mate. And so as far as sort of next 12 months for the business, what's on the horizon? What are the plans?
Well, you mentioned about getting the right working environment. One thing I recognised when I came back up to this business was the building hadn't been invested in for a long time. So, and again, the longer you leave it, the more expensive it is. So I want to do a complete refurb to get the right environment for the people. They deserve it. And certainly sometimes your longer standing staff become really accepting of that, how the way things are, and the canteen being in not the best nick, but not just to thank them for the service, but also to attract the best new people. I want to make sure that the environment's reflective of a highly performing business that's committed to giving excellence to our customers. So we've got a big investment to do. And for me, it's just keep developing my people. That's always my number one priority. I'm only as good as my team. So keep putting time into them as much as I can.
Look, I just want to thank you, John. This has been a brilliant, and look, you're absolute testament to the business. And I think, you will inspire a lot of people, of all ages, management wise, because, you're someone who has worked their craft, worked their way up. And there's so many little lessons here for people, whether that's the training piece, the psychometric testing piece, the management styles. There's loads and loads and loads of things, of great things here. People take some actions away, and it's I've learned loads myself, mate. So look, thank you so much. It's been brilliant.
No, I really appreciate it, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Manufacturing Leads podcast. It absolutely means the world to me. Please let me know if you need any assistance. As a business, we look at providing partnerships with manufacturing engineering companies to really help their recruitment and retention. On the recruitment piece, anywhere from blue collar, semi-skilled staff right the way up to C-suite level executive appointments, but also much more than that. We run events, so please let me know if you're interested in any of those. If you are interested indeed becoming a podcast guest, I'd be very, very keen to speak to you as well. More than happy to do so. But as a business, as I say, we look at key partnerships to really help your recruitment, your retention, your marketing, your training. We really believe in the partnership piece and being an extension of your business. So we're very proud to work in this sector. I love manufacturing engineering, and my staff are just as passionate about it as I am. So thank you once again for listening. Please get in touch to talk about anything we can do to help. Look forward to speaking to you very soon. Thank you.